Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, colleague of mine, philosophy professor I work with, that we've been playing phone tag, and I needed to talk to him. So, everything is good, and 5 viewers. Where is everybody? Oh, because I've been on the phone so long, everybody took off. Well, ain't that the way of it? Welcome everybody this Friday, the 28th of February. Let us talk something interesting in the morning prayers. Where's this individual distinction? Crispy had hidden. I was trying not to look at I really try not to look at the chat when I'm praying. It throws me. But it's obviously got to be evangelical. Hands 100. Well, Crispy, it's not your fault. But what I was interested, so what are they? But thou, when thou prayest, enter into the closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father, which is in secret. Okay, so this is interesting. We brought this up in logic class, and I'm gonna pull this up for you guys to look. We were doing informal fallacies. Protestants are famous for doing fallacies, and so I want to show you what fallacy that is right there. I'm going to share screen. I'm just going to pop up so you guys. It should be fallacies of relevance, I think. I'm looking for the. There it is. Got it? Ready? All right. Come on in, everybody. Oh. He's known for trolling. It's funny, I get a lot of the trolls from Jim Bob. Thank you, Jim Bob, for sending me all your trolls. Sorry, it's blacked out. Just give me a second. What's going on? Or I'm gonna come back here, and I'm gonna come back here. The fallacy of accident is committed when a general rule is applied to a specific case it was not intended to cover. Typically, the general rule is cited either directly or implicitly in the premises and then wrongly applied to a specific case. So obviously, this individual, there's a general rule, or that rule, we talked about this too, something related to the fallacy of accident is possibly the thing taken out of context. So what that verse doesn't say is, in every situation, no exceptions allowed. You always pray in private. Okay? So, and not publicly. So Protestants always read, everywhere always, that's why they call no man father, is also a fallacy of taking things out of context. I would certainly say that's a fallacy of equivocation, or amphibole, meaning, anyways, going back to the fallacy of accident. So, Protestants are notorious for this. If you have a verse, it doesn't mean that the rule or the verse applies to every situation, everywhere, at all times. Now, I'm more kind of interested in psychologically or perhaps philosophically and theologically why they have this problem of committing these fallacies. Words only have one meaning. The fallacy of equivocation, the fallacy of taking things out of context, like this person did here, and the fallacy of accident. Let's do an example of fallacy of accident. Freedom of speech is a constitutionally guaranteed right. Therefore, John Q. Radicals should not be arrested for his speech inside of the violence last week. The one that what is this one? Zoe promised to meet Ethan for coffee, but while she was walking to the local Starbucks, a pedestrian collapsed on the sidewalk right in front of her, and she stopped to administer CPR. Since people are obligated to keep their promises, it was wrong for Zoe to miss her appointment with. That's a good one too. The one that I always use, it's you should always give property back to its rightful owner after you've borrowed it. You borrowed your neighbor's hunting rifle. Your neighbor has had a psychological break, has been on meth for 7 days, and has his wife held captive and says he's going to kill her and everybody in the neighborhood, and then ask for his property, the hunting rifle that you borrowed, back. Well, the rule says, this is how Protestant, well, the Bible says right here, thou shalt not lie, right? A general rule, but there's obvious situations, as St. Basil says, where it's not only permitted to lie, but the Christian is obligated to lie to save the life of another or something like this. So I'm thinking this guy's two fallacies from this guy distinction here, and I'll just, you can see what I'm talking about. Capture. But when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut the door, pray to thy Father. Okay, so this is taken out of context. It's referring to, obviously, Pharisees, which, interesting enough, is the same thing when it talks about call no one Father. It's speaking about Father in the ultimate sense of God. And that the Pharisees were putting themselves in place of God or higher than God. So they're saying, don't be a Pharisee. Likewise, the Pharisees are praying in public so they be seen. This isn't a command to every and all places to pray in private. Why? Because we see they prayed in public. That's one of the things. So, number two, it's taken out of context. Number three, it's the fallacy of accident. Oh, here's another one of the Protestants. But when you pray, use not vain repetitions. So if they hear us, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Oh, that's a vain repetition. I wish Protestants could just actually go through courses on grammar. They don't seem to be able to even understand proper grammar. Does it say... So there's no distinction between repetition and vain repetition. Again, fallacy of suppressed evidence. Number one here. They're suppressing we'll ignore the vain and just let's focus on repetition. So that's the fallacy of suppressed evidence, because that's the necessary evidence it's the vain repetition. Fallacy of taking it out of context. Again, who is this being written to? What's the situation going on? It's the Pharisees. They have no heart for God. And they're doing prayers that are vain, empty repetition. That does not follow logically that repeating something as a repetition is therefore vain. So do you see how illogical? I really think that Protestantism makes you retarded. Anyways, your thoughts on that? What's interesting is I remember Father Russell a couple Sundays ago had he was telling a story about somebody who had left their Protestant church and became Orthodox because they wouldn't say the Our Father, because guess what? They quoted that Bible verse and said that's vain repetition. And he says, can you imagine? Christ literally teaches us how to pray, and Protestants say no. Christ, you're wrong. Your prayers that you've commanded us to pray are vain repetition. Then Protestants have, what's the word? I know what they mean. They think that a structured prayer is vain repetition. And so what they do, it's really interesting. They literally lobotomize themselves. This is why they end up in their prayers saying, and they became totally emotive, subjective. Oh, it's just the heart, you see. This is what this, I saw the individual even said something about the heart. And so improvisational prayer, which is, I remember as a Protestant, I hated that. And knew that was like the recipe to saying something heretical. So notice the God-given gift of the mind. They literally silence the mind. And they think they're going into the heart. But the heart is not emotions. And now they have emotionalism, which is what you see in Pentecostalism. Basically, the passions ruling over the mind. So they've made themselves into beasts. So again, it says pray in a secret place. It's referring to it doesn't say when you pray, always pray. Did it use that word like, so people just need to learn grammar? It was speaking specifically of a particular case. When in this situation, let me translate. When in this situation, don't be like the Pharisee to be shown, go and pray in private. Okay, it doesn't say in there, never pray in public. It didn't say that. And even if it did, it would be a fallacy of an accident. So of course we prayed public. We're praying public here. We do. All right, let's see super chats. Dale does 7, donates 10, $20. Thank you so much. Thank you, Father Deacon. Well, thank you for your support. Are priests being modernists when they cut their beards and wear Roman Catholic? Yeah, I call them the filioque collars. I can explain historically. I think it's modern. I don't know if their intent is ecumenist and modernist. So it was interesting because I was looking at the photos in our church. It's 127 years old in Butte. And it's a Serbian church. And some of the early photos, like it has it going like tons of photos going all the way back of the various priests and stuff. And I noticed some of them were wearing the filioque collar and shaved beards. I know that in my Romanian episcopate that I served in, there was a lot of that. And I can explain that historically. So when they came over, so the Serbians, I don't see this practice as much. Like, they must have shed it. But there was an attempt to integrate into society and not be seen as the outsider. The people came to the United States and they loved the idea of the United States and were trying their very best to integrate into the communities, stuff like that. And so they wanted to be seen as, rather than like, are you Muslim? What are you? This person's like a Roman Catholic priest. I get it. And so you have the clean shaven and the filioque collars and stuff like that are being used. I do know in Romania, in certain areas, because of the Austro-Hungarian history and influence of the Roman Catholic Church, there were certain Roman Catholic ascetics that got, over the years, kind of integrated, unfortunately, into certain areas of Romania. But I think for the most part, the charitable kind of reading and understanding of this is that probably most priests are not intentionally like, I'm an ecumenist and I think it's kind of historically subconscious that's kind of come in. All right. Let's see. Good question. Is that what Protestants do with the thief on the cross? What's really interesting with the thief on the cross, too, they think this is an example and proof of faith alone. There's a whole series, somebody had an article about it, a whole series of works that publicly he does. Right? Publicly confesses, he takes on. He publicly acknowledges, he does confession. He goes to confession. That's a work. He repents before the public. He acknowledges that he takes on his suffering publicly. Like, there's a whole series of works that he actually does. But there was something I wanted to... Good question. The good thief. But another problem too, Protestants, let's say that, obviously it's a rare exception, like as David Urhan says, when Christ's blood is being shed upon you while you're literally next to him in confession with Christ, and his blood is on you, then you can talk about this exception. And that's Protestantism. Let's find an exception to a rule and make it the rule. Also, faith is a work. It's an action. So, so he was baptized in blood. So baptism was required. Can there ever be an exception? Of course there can be exceptions. But again, why would you make a rule to the exception of the rule? This is how stupid Protestantism and how insane it is. So somebody asked me, they've got a terminal disease. And there's an institution that's built to deal with that, and it's called the hospital, and there's specialists. So somebody asked, yeah, but can't I still be healed outside of the hospital and seeing these specialists? I mean, I heard a story once where it actually happened. It's like, yeah, it's possible. It's miraculous. Oh, okay, cool. So we'll just encourage everybody. Nobody needs to go to the hospital. That's what Protestantism is like. Even if that were the case, you found a rare case, like the thief on the cross. If that really, and it isn't, because there obviously works there. But let's say it weren't. You are saying the same thing that, oh, I found one case, so none of us actually need to go to the hospital when we have terminal diseases. Do you see how insane this is? By the way, too, I did read something that's really interesting, that God can save whoever he wants. In fact, if Mark 2:5, I believe, is not even faith alone, because Christ saves another man based on his friend's belief and faith. Not even on... So the friend doesn't even have faith. So that's... If faith alone, God can actually save people who don't even have faith, as we see in Mark 2:5. So there goes faith alone. And then also the fact that faith actually is an action. It's not a belief. It's not even simply mere fidelity, trust. It's actually a concrete action and work. So, yes, we believe in works-based salvation. Not in terms of merits that you win the favor by doing merits. You win the favor over. See, this is what the Protestant thinks. But because works of love is what allows you to acquire virtues, and the virtues that Christ possessed is what salvation is. That's the theosis, to become like Christ and acquiring all the virtues. That cannot be imputed to you. You have to actually work at. But all of Sola Fidei is premised on nominalism. And as I've always brought up, and Jay's brought this point up too, guess what? St. Paul was not a nominalist. So that's enough to refute Sola Fidei, faith alone. All right, moving on. Why would you cut your hair? I don't know. Do you have a wife? Ask your wife what. It's probably the most important person. Your looks. What is your wife or girlfriend? Do you want you to cut your hair? Then maybe you should... Michelle Jones, $10. Thank you so much. And Alan Yee, $5. Thank you. Czar, $7. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your support. Reading more. Yeah, how's that a slam dunk? A good point. I want to be like the criminal who the thief, the last thing he stole was his salvation. Fredo asks, is the story that he came face to face with Jesus and told others about him but never... By the way, there's also tradition that and we don't know 100% if this is true. We don't know what the good thieves... We're not told in that gospel what the good thief's sacramental life was like prior to. We assume... We think that, you know, he converts on the cross. But that's presumptuous. There is tradition that he had actually met Christ before and was actually baptized. So he was an Orthodox, like one tradition is he was an Orthodox Christian. He had actually done works. He's just publicly doing confession to Christ. So that's interesting too. Um, Other questions? I'm taking my wife to go skiing today. Isn't that cool? Ski date. Ski date. It was supposed to be another church ski trip, but life happens and people had to cancel and couldn't make it. What is going on? Oh. I'll show you more drama. Ooh, ooh. Oh, I knew it. Bizarchitect. Are you in? So you posted a picture and I'm like, I recognize that parish. Huh. I don't know. I can't get the... Oh, I know. I want Twitter up. That's why. Sorry. Share screen. Sorry, that was an argument I was working on, and then I put a Zempric because there was some student got all upset with me yesterday that I was talking about acquiring virtues and that's hard, and that the student I basically said that the human condition is that we're lazy, so we always what makes us really prone to taking the easy way out. Just take a pill. Just take the Ozempic rather than work on. Well, this student found that was really offensive because she thought I was picking on fat people and calling them lazy. And it's just... grow thicker skin. I don't get it. Like, who cares about if you're... like, I'm offended that you're offended. Anyways, that was one of the things I was talking with the other professor about. But that's why I put up Ozempic. I couldn't remember the name of the medication that I had cited. I saw this and I'm like, I know this parish. At St. Luke's in Garden Grove. But you never know. So I asked, and Bizarchitect says, yes. I lived most of my life in Garden Grove, so I'm pretty familiar with. So I got the right answer there. Nikolai Korea is arguing with... So, who is this person? So, supposedly this guy has called Jay and myself a heretic. I want to know, does this person have a blessing to do publications? They're anonymous. Are they even Orthodox? We have a whole clergy advisory board. So I think this person was... basically taking the position that uh, logic and transcendentals are a man-made thing. They're not grounded in God. That this is a J. Dyer heresy. I'm a heretic. So all of us clergy on Patristic Faith were heretics, but you're actually correct. That's why we've got to be careful. Again, first of all, you as a laity person don't get to determine who's a heretic or not. So it doesn't matter what you have to say. False publications. It is uncanonical, and you could be disciplined for slandering clergy, calling clergy heretics when they're not. So what's the proof that you're even orthodox? If you're engaged, false publications, I'm calling you out. Yes, Jay says right here the laws of logic are created, not uncreated. Yeah, that's exactly, it's in St. Maximus. By God, not by human beings. So we got another example here of somebody who's under no blessing, who's pretending to be orthodox, who's slandering clergy. Again, everybody on Patristic Faith has a blessing, episcopal blessing, priest blessing, to do the work, and they're under the authority of a whole clergy, a Patristic Faith clergy advisory board. So if you call anybody on Patristic Faith a heretic, what you're doing is you're calling the advisory board and the bishops that bless heretics. And again, you're not in a position to say that. And all that shows is you're not orthodox. So unless you can provide the proof that you have a blessing to do publications, that you have a blessing to call Orthodox priests and clergy heretics, I'm going to assume that you are not Orthodox. And especially if you're defending things that aren't Orthodox. So just classic Protestant internet modern phenomenon. Well, I can just make the argument by myself. Notice it's anti-hierarchical, anti-authority. It's me and my books, me and my publication, and I can come up with whatever heresy I want. And I'm anonymous, so you can't actually know if I'm Orthodox, and I'm not accountable. Right? Yeah, I don't understand, like, how people are allowed to call clergy heretics without. Steve the Turd donates $10. Thank you, Steve. Father, can you explain how niceness is in a Christian ethic? Also, books you recommended on Christian ethics and our culture. Well, first of all, niceness is not even a classical virtue. And as I was talking to the Discord, somebody was asking about Aristotle. I'm like, I think that we would, as Orthodox, even accept all of Aristotle's virtues. There was a question about magnanimity, because the person thought, I've heard this critique, well, that's prideful. I don't think so. I think there's a way to read that that's not. And then, what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. The Christian virtues they're similar to, in fact, my Dr. Sean Stidd, my dear friend, Orthodox philosophy professor at Wayne State University. I think he had written a paper on comparing the classical virtues with the Christian virtues. Okay, so the reason why nicety is not is I think there's a couple of different. First of all, to be nice is superficial. Oh, that's what they said about the serial killer next door. He was nice. So it's sort of typically kind of understood being nice is a facade, so that couldn't be. What somebody might mean by that term is to be gentle and meek. That's fine. Gentleness and meekness is a virtue. But I want to. The problem is, again, just like the Protestants have, if you have a general rule, is it applied everywhere always at the same time? No, it's absolutely not. In fact, if you apply a virtue where it's not supposed to be applied, it's a sin. It's sometimes there is a place. So it would be a sin if you actually tried to, if what a person means by nice is gentleness, meekness. One second, I'm trying to find the verse here. Forgive me. Yeah, I got it. Applying a virtue in the wrong area at the wrong time would actually be sinful. So no, you are not required to be gentle and meek and kind in every situation. Let's read Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to gather stones, and to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, a time to give up. A time to keep, a time to throw away. A time to tear, a time to mend. A time to be silent, a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. That summarizes exactly how we're to apply the virtues, when and where. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. And if you mix those categories up, if you're being gentle and meek when it's a time for war and a time to tear down and a time to hate, then you're sinning, actually. Okay, good questions. Yeah, so Fos Publications, 160. Who are the followers? I'm gonna look at. If there's anybody on the blacklist. What is this person? I don't think I want to get involved in arguments today. By the way, this is interesting. I know this has come up before, but it was coming up in class, and then excuse me. And then, oddly enough, it came up in the philosophy section of the Discord last night. And that is, are you guys ready? How do we know when to fold them? When to hold them, when to fold them, when to, yeah. By the way, yeah, did I save this? There was like a meme, a great picture. That kind of illustrates. Please, Lord, did I save it? All right, I'm gonna send this to my email so I can pop up. This is great. Empty subject. I need to put a subject on here. All of this is to go to the point. This is a very contemporary, modern effeminization of the church. That I'd also say too, it is it comes from the left, an influence of trying to tone police and weaponize morality. Oh, that's not pious. You shouldn't be. That's mean. Those are all leftist tactics. Those are the, as we pointed out, the dark triad traits. Pop this up. So you have to keep that. It's very effeminate. It's tone policing. And it's sociopathic, Machiavellian, that you don't actually care about whether somebody's, and it becomes obvious the more you talk about these, you don't actually care whether the person is, are they executing virtues or vices? What you're trying to do is to weaponize morality and actually to win, to get the upper hand over the individual because you don't like the said person. All right. With that being said, there are two kinds of saints. St. Patrick converts pagans through mostly peaceful methods. St. Olga completely destroys city full of pagans. There's not one type of saint in Orthodoxy. There's not one type of virtue that you apply everywhere at all times. And I've seen people try to weaponize, oh, that's mean, Deacon. You should be more like St. Herman or Sarah from Sarah. But why can't I be more like St. Olga? What are you talking about? St. Alexander Nevsky. Svinte Stefan Chalmare, St. Stephen the Great. Like, why can't I be a warrior saint? Maybe that's more fitting to my character. And in some sense, I think it is. I know how to be meek and gentle, but I've always, as I pointed out, have a fighting spirit in me. To fight for the other, the most vulnerable. Like I told you the story about, me being a skinny, scrawny kid standing up to bullies because I didn't like bullies. Like King David. So I'll be danged if I have you weaponize morality and fake piety signaling as a sociopathic Machiavellian trying to tone police and control me. Um, I have a priest and a spiritual father who advised me what I don't do is allow laity, who I don't even know who you are, online weaponize words and morality and call me mean, or I'm offended at, I don't care in terms of that. I don't know you. I don't even know if you are a real human being or an AI bot. So you're not owed anything. Let's see. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, it's just a lack of nuance, too. Okay, are animals rational like human beings are rational animals? Somebody brought up in the Discord that their friend was arguing that apes can be considered rational because they learn sign language. Well, I didn't know sign language was the mark of rationality, first of all. But this is interesting because we were going over this in class. Because we just finished up Aristotle, and it's kind of taxonomy in terms of essences, the distinction between vegetative souls, sensitive, i.e., animal souls, and rational souls, human beings. And I told my class this week, I'm like, people have asked me this question, how do I know? Because God revealed it. How about that? God said so. What better argument do you want? The one who's in a position to know, because he's created the animal kingdom of human beings, said they're not rational. They're not made in the image of God. How about that? Don't like. Oh, I don't like that. You have to come down to my term, arbitrary terms, and okay, I can do that. The mark of rationality. So I would say it's animals and going up the various levels, the primates even more remarkably intelligent. They have intelligence. Certainly. And what does that intelligence look like? Well, they're conscious. That doesn't necessarily mean they're self-conscious, but conscious is as an awareness of what it's like to have a particular experience, a qualitative what it's likeness, of what the sun feels like. They're aware of that. What it sounds and smells, and plants don't have that. Plants are not conscious. Animals are. That's why Aristotle calls it, they're sensitive. They have perception and sensation. Plants do not. They have levels of intelligence. They have memory. And they can learn names and words and respond to that. But as I've always argued, they stay at the level of nominalism. They're like nominalists. So, first of all, sign language is signs, words. They're not concepts and necessarily universals. And if they are, it's because sign language is dependent upon more sophisticated versions of language. So it's a rudimentary, it's dependent upon actual languages. All right. That being said, Momo the ape can learn 76 words or signs, names, using sign language. Momo is intelligent. Momo has memory. Momo can know, in some sense of the word, and be aware of the word red ball and distinguish it from other entities with different colors and stuff like that. But what Momo can never get is the ball is red. Momo cannot form concepts and universals. Red ball is a name, so Momo can sign that. Black box, that's a name. Door, right? All these that can. But those aren't concepts. Momo doesn't form universals and then subsume that particular under the universal. Momo can associate this with previous memories of the names. My cats can do that too. I can. Okay. And then I revisited an article that I was like, where Donald Davidson argued animals don't even have beliefs. Okay, so let's say this: the bare minimum to have rational intelligence is what? Beliefs and concepts. Concepts in philosophy are considered universals. No animal has that. They can't get to that. They can't get to the ball is red, because that involves concepts, right? Universals, redness, ballness, and then the act of predication of being able to put under concepts and form beliefs in terms of propositions. Animals cannot do that. At best, they can have a name. They're nominalist. So check this out. How do we know that? Look at this article here that I was rereading. Uh-oh. What happened? Yeah. Just bear with me. And then after this I need to go because I need to shower up and get ready to go skiing. Take my wife. So we're going to take a deep dive real quick into what is a belief and a concept. What does it mean to have a concept of something? Let's look at Donald Davidson's examples. To have a concept of a cat, you must have a concept of an animal. Oh, do you see you're going up in the level of universals? Or at least a continuing physical object. Something can move freely in its environment. Something that has sensation is just basically defining animality. There's no fixed list of things you have to know about or associate with being a cat. But unless you have a lot of beliefs about what a cat is, you do not have a concept of cat. Then he transfers this over to the concept of belief. So we have to ask, how do I know that animals can't have beliefs? Well, to have the concept of belief, for example, to have a concept of a propositional attitude. So he's just defining what belief. What does a belief entail? Beliefs are either true or false. So to have a concept of belief means that you have to have a concept or understanding that what one believes might nevertheless be false. And this means grasping the difference means you have to also have a concept and a belief about the difference between truth and falsehood. Do you think animals have that? That's ridiculous. Knowing the difference between true and false beliefs. Thus, without having quite a lot of beliefs about what a belief really is, one cannot have a concept of belief. And without that, one cannot have any beliefs at all. And from all this, it follows that without having a concept of belief, one cannot have any other concept at all, other concepts at all. For without having quite a lot of beliefs, one cannot have concepts. So we get, without having concepts of belief, one neither has beliefs nor concepts. Ooh, great argument. So animals neither have beliefs nor do they have concepts. The two bare minimum requirements for rationality. Not to mention discursive reasoning, all the different other stuff that would probably. There have been some studies on this too. Somebody says, I remember a student last year was like, well, how do we know? We could just be locked inside their. It's like, no, because your thoughts and the things going on in your head always become public through your actions and what you do. So, although, yes, I can't get inside even your head and have a first person kind of awareness of what it's like to actually have your thoughts private, I know that you have certain types of thoughts because the thoughts that are privately in your head are made public and give me an access to see generally what they are. So, yes, I can look at animals and be like, yeah, they're not rational. They're not forming concepts. And now, because why? Oh, what if it's just animal language? Well, the fact of the matter is, I can have no knowledge or understanding semantically of a foreign language when a foreign language speaker is speaking that foreign language. Yet, I can actually translate, and I can realize that what they're doing is forming concepts and beliefs, even though I don't understand what those words mean. If I can, and then conclude, they're obviously rational beings. If I can do that with foreign language speakers, then I can obviously do that with animals. I'm like, I don't like they can have an animal language. I can still determine that they're not rational. I can see they're not forming concepts and beliefs. And even more so, I mean, look, if we can take Helen Keller, who's deaf, dumb, and blind, and determine she's not a beast, but a rational animal, then of course I can determine an animal is not rational. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard border collies can differentiate between verbs and nouns. But just as if that's true, first of all, one of the things in this article too is that we're anthropomorphizing, so we're projecting our concepts onto. But they don't know what a verb and noun is. So the ability to distinguish between some things that you know to be a verb and noun does not mean that the animal knows what a verb and noun is simply because they can distinguish it. The fact of the matter is they're two different words and names. Big deal. They can distinguish between names. That's all that's saying. They don't know what it means because meaning requires beliefs. Unless you want to say simply just a very rudimentary meaning in terms of correspondence of a name to an object or another name. So isomorphic establishes some type of kind of rudimentary meaning. But obviously, typically what we mean by semantics and meaning is that holistic, semantic holism that Donald Davison's talking about. That meaning takes place within the overall web of beliefs and concepts. And if you don't have concepts, you can't have a concept of belief. And you don't have a concept of belief, you can't actually have a belief. So, in that level, animals don't know what it means to be a verb or a noun. Because they don't understand meaning beyond just the word corresponding to another word or entity or property. Yeah, how do you remove the inflection bias? You're always going to be um, projecting your understanding onto things that don't have that and then interpret it. So you can't. Is it unbecoming if I request? You can always request, just don't be autistic about. We had a guy once that, like, he thought he wasn't going to have a legitimate baptism if he wasn't fully immersed in every piece of the water. Um, Again, we don't believe these things are like there's a prescribed way. Um, those can change and be accommodated. Um, we don't believe in magical incantations and formulae. If you don't do it exactly right, it doesn't work. So you follow your priest on that, and you can always ask. Yeah, good point. Alterwood. AI cannot understand meaning. That's the I've written on this in my PhD thesis. Like, I studied John Searle and the Chinese room argument. So there's a difference between syntax and semantics. Meaning, okay, so um, with the Chinese room argument reveals is something very similar. What the artificial intelligence is doing is syntax. They're putting words and letters in order. But words in a particular order is not semantics and meaning. That's why you could have somebody in the Chinese room following rules, which is what a computer does from input and then output, ordering letters and have no understanding or beliefs or awareness of what that syntactical order actually means. So what a computer can never get, or machine, is semantics. So the meaning of that. That's what it shows. No matter how advanced our technology. So what happens, because you are a semantic agent, you know what those mean. And so you interpret the syntactical order semantically. But that doesn't mean that the thing producing syntax understands semantics like you do. Just like the animal. Just because you're interpreting sounds and stuff like that to have meaning doesn't mean where it's coming from actually does. So no, it can never actually be have. And the other thing too is it can never. Consciousness is at least required. If animals don't even have that meaning, and at least they're conscious. Even more so for AI. AI can never be conscious because consciousness is first person subjective, and machines are always third person objective. So there's no way to reduce first person to third person. You have all the irreducible conscious arguments that refute the possibility of AI. And if AI can never be conscious, then obviously it can't possess meaning and be aware of semantics and stuff like that. It's not a paper, it's a PhD thesis. I wrote I was doing, it's called An Alternative Explanation of Mind and Nature, lessons from Bernard Lonergan and John Searle. Yeah. Remember, too, all these are premised on a particular philosophy, so even the Turing test. This is all premised on physicalism and behaviorism and logical behaviorism and functionalism. So the only reason why the Turing test even seemed possible was, again, if logical behaviorism is true. So notice physicalism and logical behaviorism is there is no private internal thought that it's raining or anything like that, because that would refute physicalism, because physicalism says everything is third person public objective phenomenon. That's the definition of physicality, material. So what it means to have the thought it's raining is simply outward behavior or dispositions to behavior, and defined in terms of input output. If the input, the external stimuli that it's raining, then you have a disposition, or you do a behavior, an action, namely closing the windows, and or wearing an umbrella or carrying an umbrella outside. So it's all publicly accessible. So there's no internal mysterious thought or belief that it's raining. So therefore, if you ask, well, could a machine become intelligent? The turn is then, well, basically if it's quacks like a duck, sounds like a duck, smells like a duck, looks like a duck, it's a duck. So if that's all it is to actually be, have beliefs and to be intelligent, if it passed that test, if it convinces you, right, if it fools you, then it is that thing, because that's all it is to be the... So that's why its premise on those things is they're more fundamental critiques of the presuppositions of materialism, logical behaviorism, and that those things are false. So all right, I think, let me just check. Yeah, syntax, in order to understand syntax alone, word ordering cannot produce semantics. That's a good way. It already presupposes semantic agents who then can interpret the syntax. Good point. All right. Let me just check and see if we have any more super chats, and I'll let you guys go. Ooh, stretching. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us in prayers. And please keep my wife and myself and our communion family and the priests up here in your prayers. May we have a blessed Lent. Yeah, hit that like button. It's weird. More viewers than likes. I don't even know what we were up to. The highest was 57. Yeah, 57 concurrent viewers. God bless you guys and keep you and preserve you. Until next time, God bless.